think really fittingly after Pentecost, where we celebrate the Spirit who is with us and the coming of the Holy Spirit, we're sent out into the world to live out this story that we've been talking about throughout Advent and Christmas and Lent and Easter, the story of Christ. And so this is the story of the church living its normal life through the power of the resurrected Christ.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Hymnology, and today I'm excited to have our guest on the show, our first full-out band guest, and that is the crew from Ordinary Time Music. Guys, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thanks for having us.
For having us.
So since there are more of you than I normally have, I'm just going to kind of let you guys take it. So we have Jill, Peter, and Ben.
Right.
So guys, if you guys want to just go through, introduce yourselves. Let's see. Peter, we will start with you and just kind of work our way around.
Okay, my name is Peter LaGrand, and I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, where I work as a psychotherapist. I've got 3 young kids, youngish kids, and married. And anything else you want? Favorite candy bar or something? Or is that good?
Hey man, whatever you want to throw out at me. Sure, go ahead. So,
yeah.
So tell me what's your career, your actual job again? Tell me that again.
Yeah, my job, I work as a psychotherapist. So
Okay.
different names. Some people call it counselor, some people call it a therapist. I see people, and people come to me with to work on personal issues in their life. So I spend my days doing that, split time between that and taking care of my kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Jill, tell us about
Yes.
yourself.
I'm Jill. I'm from Florida originally, but living in Baltimore, Maryland now for the past 11 years with my husband and now 4 kids. They are young. And so I was a worship director full-time at churches, a couple churches for years before kids, and then have been a stay-at-home mom and volunteer musician at church. My husband leads a church plant here in Baltimore City.
Okay. All right, Jessica. So you guys just didn't want to hang out in Panama City anymore, so we just went
That's right.
to Baltimore, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
But my parents are still there. It's a great place to vacation.
Hey, yeah, at least you got somebody. And I know we were talking yesterday, but I'm originally from about 45 minutes from there, so
Yeah.
I can completely
Oh, wow.
understand wanting to not be so far down south. I completely understand that, especially in the summer. So we're already hitting like 85, pushing 90. So
Oh, wow.
it's
Wow.
we're already getting there. So all right, Ben, how about you?
Yeah, so my name is Ben Kais. I live up in Massachusetts, the far north, just about 45 minutes out of Boston. And I'm married and I've got 3 kids, twin girls who are 14, a little boy who's 10, not so little actually. And yeah, in addition to playing music, the main sort of day job is my wife and I are directors of a branch of L'Abri Fellowship, which is a study center and intentional community started by Francis Schaeffer back in the 1950s. But there's a branch just outside of Boston, and that's where we work and live. So really spent a lot of time offering hospitality to people, sitting down, trying to help them to address their questions, directing them towards things to study, and a lot of meals, a lot of discussions around meal tables and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, so kind of a lot of current backgrounds, more so than just kind of where you've been. So you guys are pulling from a lot of different areas, and let's do this. What kind of church background are we in right now as far as denominationally? I made an assumption yesterday when speaking with Jill that you guys were just all Anglican because of your band name, but so I wasn't sure. So
That's great.
It was a good guess.
yeah. So what all are you guys working with? So Jill, what is, I can't remember exactly what you said. What kind of church do you guys attend?
Yeah, the church that we're in right now is a non-denominational church. It was planted by a Presbyterian church, and I grew up in our background is a variety of Presbyterian denominations, and but in a non-denominational church right now.
Okay. In where I grew up, the fact that there are a variety of Presbyterians is something that no one would understand. there's like one in my hometown. There's I think there's two churches. One's PCA, one's PCUSA, and they're still rocking. Okay, so a little bit of Presbyterian. Okay, Peter.
Well, I grew up in the Christian Reformed Church. My father was a Christian Reformed pastor, but he was probably not. I guess he was a little bit outside. So I grew up in a Christian Reformed context where we did pay attention to the church calendar and feast days and things like that. And then outside of that, I served as a minister in the Mennonite Brethren church here in Canada. And then currently attend a Quaker fellowship. And so, kind of moved around.
Yeah. There's fewer of those where I'm from too.
Yeah.
not nearly.
They're very quiet. You might not know.
Yeah, not nearly as many, but.
Did you say fewer of or fear of? I couldn't hear you.
Maybe, but about the closest thing we get there is like, Quaker punches votes and that kind of thing. That's close as we get.
The claim
to
fame.
I mean, those are good notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Legit.
That's right. All right, Ben, what about you?
Yeah, so growing up in New England, my parents took my brothers and I to a variety of different churches, some congregational churches, which can be almost anything in New England. It just means that the congregation sort of has kind of governing authority. But then spent high school and college and some of the years after college attending a non-denominational African-American church, a whole bunch of different traditions within that church. And after that, in grad school, my wife and I attended an Anglican church, and that was something that appealed to both of us, the liturgy in the Anglican tradition. I don't consider myself an Anglican, but I do love the liturgy a lot.
Being an Anglican is the new thing for Baptists to do.
Is it?
It's the new SBC. So it's so far that's what it's becoming. So people who are just, people who aren't Reformed, but they're also don't want to be Baptist anymore. That's where they go. So we'll see.
It's like
we'll
a little.
Yeah.
And then more recently, since moving back to Massachusetts, we've been going to a congregational church not too far from here, which has been it's a good Bible teaching church, but again, it doesn't really belong to any particular denomination.
Okay.
So
so all of you kind of either you have had that background or you're currently in like more of a liturgical kind of setting right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Peter, I know you mentioned that you guys kind of follow that liturgical calendar kind of growing up.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I, as a Southern Baptist worship leader, I make sure that we pretend that we follow the liturgical calendar. Like I'll throw the colors out there on our cross when it's time for that to happen.
Yeah. Right.
But it's definitely a kind of a challenge to keep that up, because the thought is, is this really the actual date that happened? I'm like, well, this December 25th really when Jesus was born. So it's kind of tough to keep up with, but it is, so that is good background to know that you all kind of come from that background. So going on, just let's talk about the beginning. Then we'll talk about you guys, the actual band itself. So where did this whole thing begin, and how long ago did you guys actually meet and start doing this?
We met in 2004, right? Or 2005, 2004. We started playing together.
You and Peter, that was before I arrived.
Yeah, you came early 2005. And by the end of, I guess we started playing together in maybe 2006. Was that what we decided?
Yeah, I feel like our I always think our first recording was 2006, but maybe that was when it was released. I think that was it. So 2022, we're 16 years in. I think that's what we've said. And we were all at Regent College in Vancouver, British Columbia, and all musicians, and we met before taking a particular class, but we took a history of Christian hymnody, and we all really love old hymns,
Yeah.
done simply and with harmony. And so that was definitely a part of our DNA from the beginning. It's just a desire to sing and play those hymns in a really simple way.
So at Regent, what kind of influences did you guys have out? Obviously, that conversation started in class, but what were kind of your influences there?
Like theologically, musically,
either
socially.
one. Yeah.
Region is the sort of place that really tries hard to like be not, say like, oh, we're unattached to everything. But you have J.I. Packer teaching there.
Okay.
You have some pretty strong traditions. Jill and Ben could probably articulate this better than me, but you do both have like a wide variety of people coming in, both international, a lot from North America. You have a pretty strong Brethren history and Anglican, but also a real inquisitiveness and a desire to seek deeply into the traditions and to have dialogue among the different places, different streams. And so I think that's part of the surrounding influence.
I don't think unattached to a lot of things, but attached very purposely to just the main things. Does that make sense?
Thank you. That's better. That's good. That's good.
And then everything that's even secondary or tertiary, you have so many people from so many different backgrounds from all over the world coming together and holding on to these very main things together. And I remember one time in Old Testament class, I think Pravin was talking about Samson, and another professor came in and like yelled, "He was a good guy, don't listen to him." I mean, you could see your professors who are living out lives of faith disagreeing with each other and loving each other well. And that was part of that. And the history of hymnody is kind of the same, right? Like people who are very different, putting out these songs, tweaking them, making the other person mad, and putting them in their own hymnal after they've like shaped it a little bit differently. And but trying to hold on to these main things as the main thing, something that you can sing and worship with together. So
that's one of the strong points of Regent College, I think, is not being a denominational school. There's just it's different perspectives among the professors, because nobody is towing any one particular line except for these very basic creedal affirmations. And it also makes it a little bit of a bewildering place when you first arrive. If you're looking to sort of find a church tradition, you come to Regent, it was like, who.
Okay, so Ben, you came in a little bit after.
Yeah, the next year. Yep.
Okay.
And Peter and I, we met through a mutual friend who wanted to connect the two of us because of our music. Yeah. He told me that you need to meet Peter, and so we started playing together maybe once or twice. I'm not even sure what we did. And before we got together with Jill, and do you remember?
So going from there, so I mean, where did that kind of, was just one of those things where like, okay, we all kind of three had the same interest, let's try to write some music? Or was it more of it just kind of happened? I mean, kind of how did it begin?
Things happen in ordinary time because Peter LaGrand says so. That's why.
Gotcha.
I was reflecting on this today, Sawyer, because reflecting on our process over the years, because it has been many years, and definitely at the beginning it was very much directive from me saying, hey, Jill and Ben, I want to do this project. I want to do a sort of Advent Christmas recording.
Okay.
A number of traditional songs, but some original songs. I don't think we had never done anything together, and in my mind, it was more of a project of individuals than it was going to be a band. We had no name. We didn't set out to make a group. So the first project actually was more listed as, Peter LaGrand, Ben Kais, Jill Zimmerman, before Jill was married. And it was only sort of, we came in, and in my mind, I was thinking, Jill and I sing together. Ben knows how to play all these instruments. That's what we'll do. And then in the recording, Ben adds his voice. things happen. And it was after the recording, I think, like from my perspective, I was like, wow, this is something bigger than just the three of us. And I remember, talking with Ben and Jill about this, and then that is when we kind of, I guess, formed as a band, kind of after it kind of came, and then we all sort of recognized it almost. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I'll add to that. Just I think the our harmonies of the three of us singing together in harmony was something that each of us have sung with lots of people over the years, but I think there was a something beautiful that happens when they sort of snap together, and it was a little bit easier with Peter and Jill than anybody else I'd ever sung with before.
Yeah.
And really there was something special there, and I think part of it was one of the reasons why it wasn't just a Christmas album and that was it, was that it was just really well received by the community at Regent, and it was really encouraging. We did a house show, and I think that was one of the things that encouraged us to, well, maybe this is something that should continue, should actually be an entity, not just an album.
And not just by our peers, but like for instance, our professor who taught that history of hymnody class, Janet Danielson, she was like, you guys sound like siblings, like there's something happening here.
She said that?
A number of Regent professors really liked it. So it was, our peers were encouraging, but your friends are always encouraging on your projects, but this kind of right away it transcended just our own relationships, like people were sharing this music beyond just people that knew us personally, and so something bigger was happening.
Well, and I think that speaks to chasing after, creativity, and you guys had a project, just a simple project that you wanted to work on, and you chased after that, and it became something else. And I think so often we maybe like, that's not a real thing, I don't really want to get too deep down into that, and then here you guys are 16 years later.
I think it also, for me, and I think for us, it speaks to, like, we all recognize right away this is bigger than us, like God has given us these gifts and this history of hymnody and these traditions, and we were able to offer what we could, but it became something more. And from the beginning, we've tried to, even in our own practice, emphasize praying about it, setting it up well, making very clear what we're doing. And from the beginning, it's been, even when we were not a band, we were just three, it was like, we're doing this as an act of worship. We are doing this as an offering of gifts, not as a not to make this splash, and that was, and we were able to wake up. So it was a real gift, and we happened to be able to recognize it.
I was trying to make a splash the whole time, but it never worked.
You might have wanted to go in a different direction. Any direction except for liturgical Christian music.
So over time, as you guys have gone on and got married and had kids and all that kind of thing, how has the dynamic changed as far as you guys writing and playing together? What has that been like?
We don't see each other very much, Sawyer.
Okay.
we've never like had a real tour, or like, it's just been very kind of piecemeal, and we've been just surprised and grateful when we do get to be together. So maybe once a year we'll do a few shows, or a show, or we'll record a project or something, so that we've been able to, every few years put out another album. I think there are 5 or 5.5 or something, and play here and there as people ask to bring us in for a missions conference or whatever, and so it's just, for each of us, it's this very cherished thing that we do in this little pocket of our lives,
and there's been some change. I mean, over the years, at the beginning, Jill didn't write any songs for the project, and has developed into a really great songwriter, and there's been a bit of, like we've tried over the years. We haven't had much time, stage of life, all of us building careers and having growing families. We've made attempts to write together and to thicken the instrumentation,
Yeah.
but really, it's really that process is really now starting for the first time ever. We just last weekend we got together for the first time ever since we started without having to play a show or record an album, just to practice.
Yeah.
And it was delightful. And so
Yeah.
we're trying to lean into maturing into a next stage of musicianship and craft
And collaboration.
So,
Yeah.
Usually our what we do is each one of us will write a song, pretty much complete it, and then bring it to the group, and the other two members will add what they add and make maybe some suggestions, and it'll come together fairly quickly. But this is something we're attempting, which is hard because we haven't done it before. And Jill was good at sort of keeping our feet to the fire, so to speak. Like we're gonna start with just this kernel and really nothing else, and we're gonna write a song together. We're gonna work on this for the next hour and try to come up with something brand new, which is a really really interesting, fun, challenging, unlike what we normally have done in the past. But
so when you say together,
like,
you mean in the room.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Jill. So when you say
in the
together,
room.
you mean the room?
In the room.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is that? So explain, because I've talked about co-writing before, like actual in the room or one-on-one co-writing. What was that like? You guys finally doing that for the first time?
Yeah, I think you talked with Rachel. I'm sure she has way more experience, but it was fun. It feels like a muscle that you would have to like work out and exercise to really develop. So this was like our very first time at working out that collective muscle of trusting it. I mean, we have such good and long-standing relationships with each other. There's a lot of trust there already.
Yeah.
And we know that we think well of each other. And so I don't think any of us is really hung up on, I'm going to look silly if I try this melody and it's stupid, so that was great. And then just bringing, we just read through, I think it was Psalm 27, and had like a teeny bit of a melody, and then Ben suggested a bridge, and I can hear, sometimes I hear instrument parts in my head that I'm not a good enough guitar player to play, but I can sing them, and then Ben can play them. So that was fun too.
I got you. Okay.
So that, it was just, I felt like it was pretty organic, and it was kind of sad that, we only had that weekend together, and it is something that I'm sure that it can happen on Zoom too. But it was nice to be physically present with each other, for that.
You do remember when we tried to sing together on Zoom, right?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, it does not work.
It did not. That was the beginning of pandemic learning.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. And the thing is, just lag is not a good.
The delay
for singing together.
Yeah, I will answer it in a different way. So, like another aspect that I'm really excited about with our co-writing is there's that, taking it from like maybe coming up with the ideas right there.
Yeah. And
then this last weekend I really enjoyed, one of my songs. I was able to get, Ben and Joe, we, wrote a totally different bridge, changed the timing, the song became better, so I was able to bring it. One of Jill's songs, we have a real luxury of having a 16-year relationship as a band, so that, Jill brought a song and I said, why don't we try this in a completely different style? And that became something really quick, and so we have, growing in that, something you can only do when you're in the room.
Right.
And then, we started another nugget that Ben was going to take home and work on more. And so it's a combination of all those. And I think it's delightful to have even a little time to play, to really get back to that genesis of creativity and play, and not have to produce, but have time where we can just play and make mistakes and go down the wrong paths and then let stuff live or fail, and not force it to produce right away, like not have to record the next day or play it in a show, which primarily is what we've had to do for our career as a band.
Yeah, and I've talked about this before with some others about just, not every song has to be one that's going to change the world. It can be for this group in this moment, and you can write that together, or you can write on your own. And I'm sure that's a special thing to share together.
Yes.
So let's talk about something a little more practical. Let's talk about band name for a second. So we're Ordinary Time. I know what Ordinary Time means. Let's talk about where that came from. So why are you guys called Ordinary Time?
This is all Jill. Jill came up with this. We were at a cafe.
I actually don't remember being the one to come up with
You
this.
don't?
I do remember being in that cafe.
Nobody will
Ben,
tell
do
me
you
what it
remember?
means. Nobody tells me what it means. I'm still waiting to hear what it.
Ben, do you remember when Jill came up with the name?
I don't remember the specific instance, but
Wow.
I believe it. I mean, that's
I guess I've
never doubted that
this
she was the one that came up with the name.
I have a really clear memory of sitting at that Wired Monk Cafe with both of you.
Upstairs on the mezzanine level, on the upstairs part? No? Downstairs?
No, this is on 4th.
Ben was at a different cafe.
Yeah, Ben was somewhere
maybe
else.
I wasn't there, and that's why I don't remember. Oh, okay.
You were there, but we came up
The
with this name.
cafe only has one level.
That was the discussion where we were
way
like,
up
well, should we be a band? And so we thought, okay, yes. And then we came up with this name. Let's talk about that. It's a little bit ironic that I think almost half of the music we've ever recorded and sent out into the world is Advent music.
True.
Advent and Christmas music.
Not Ordinary
and our
Time
name
music.
is Ordinary Time. But
Yeah.
I think over the years, I think it is fitting. I mean, Ordinary Time in the church calendar, if you're following it, is like there are two main cycles in the church calendar of preparation, celebration, and then like some people say action. Like, so there's like Advent, and then Christmas tides, Christmas celebration, and then Epiphany, and then there's a small section of Ordinary Time after that, like in the winter, and leading up until Ash Wednesday, and then you have another preparatory time of preparation leading up to celebrating Easter. Then you have Easter tide, which we're in right now, and then after Pentecost, you have the largest chunk of Ordinary Time, which is like half the year, like in the summer, and that's when I think really fittingly after Pentecost, where we celebrate the Spirit who is with us and the coming of the Holy Spirit, we're sent out into the world to live out the story that we've been talking about throughout Advent and Christmas and Lent and Easter, the story of Christ. And so this is the story of the church living its normal life through the power of the resurrected Christ in the power of the Spirit. And it's just called Ordinary Time, not because it's mundane, but because it's ordered time, numbered time, measured time, because the way they count it is like first Sunday after, Pentecost, second Sunday after, all the way. I think there's like 33 or something weeks of Ordinary Time in the year. So that's mostly what it is. And it's not necessarily a season. It's just counting the time in between the seasons. And that's this in-between time where we live, in between the story of Christ and the coming of Christ. And so I think, I mean, from our perspective now, 16 years in, even though we've released a lot of Christmas music, there have been a lot of stories that have come back to us about how our music has walked people through those ordinary, those measured times of sadness and of joy. And so just we want to continue to offer music that Jesus' disciples, us, Christ followers, can walk this road with, that can help them in their journey of devotion. So that's where the name comes from.
Well, that's good. And I think it's important to share that, because if we're not aware of what that time actually is, we think, well, man, that's a very humble brag of a band name. But we're talking about a time in the church that we're basically in between celebrating and figuring out what to do with what we're celebrating. And music, worship is definitely a part of that. So let's see. We're talking a lot about Advent. And we are right past Easter now, but I still want to talk about Advent anyway, because it's okay. We can talk about what we want to talk about. So starting in the very beginning, I believe it was 2006. I think it's whenever you guys first got going. And let me find it. Okay, so our first album here that we have is In the Town of David. Is that the first one?
That's the one. Yeah.
Okay, so we start off with Advent. Why did we start off Advent right out of the gate? What was the inspiration there?
Well, I think one. This was again before we were a band, before we thought of ourselves as having a particular calling to make more music. This was, I mean, literally, it was Peter wanting to make an album to give to people for Christmas presents, and
Okay.
contacting us, contacting Jill and I to work on writing some original Christmas music. And I don't know. I mean, I love Christmas music. It never occurred to me that you could write new Christmas music. That was like a
Yeah.
weird thing at the time. And so that was. I don't think it was really much of a strategy in the beginning, as much as it was just this is the time of year we're building up to, and we want to make something we can offer to people in that season. Do you have?
It's a great question. Sorry, Jill, do you have something to say? Are you?
No, I was gonna say some of these songs are Christmas songs, but some of them I feel like Peter, you were kind of responding to a need for more specifically Advent related songs.
Yeah,
so
I
like,
was. Yeah.
Here now you House of David and Come to Us Emmanuel, particularly like with Advent,
Mhm.
you're remembering the waiting of Israel, but also
Mhm.
remembering that we're still waiting for the coming of Christ. And Come to Us Emmanuel, I feel like Peter is just a beautiful new
Mhm.
Advent hymn on that,
Mm.
talking about Isaiah's vision and
Mhm.
that we're still longing for that Christ to return.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I would have articulated this way at the time, Sawyer, but I think from my perspective and some of the songs I wrote, I recognize that, this season of Advent, especially in the West, in the cultures that I've been in, there's a real celebratory aspect at Christmas, which is fine. It is, the birth of the Savior, but underneath, there was this aspect of the yearning, the longing for the kingdom, for, yes, this has happened, but, there's so much darkness, and so part of me, and this is probably influenced because I'm right now reading a book by Susan Cain called Bittersweet, which talks a lot about, this longing and the yearning, and references like C.S. Lewis' journey. And I think that this is really present to me in the scriptures, concerning Advent. And so a lot of the songs, the tenor of the album, at least the songs that I wrote, is kind of in the minor, is kind of in a little kind of more yearning, and it is really different from the more top 40 Christmas carols you'd hear on the radio. And there's a lot more silence, and that is what I craved for in the midst of that season. And so I wanted to make an album like these songs to give to my family. And I also, maybe unbeknownst to me, like there was this desire to present music for this season that held some space, for something more than just the yay hooray, he's here, and a more like this people longing for a Messiah, and this hope that we still have, and this yearning for God incarnate. And so when I re-listen to this album now, I'm struck by that, like how much space there's in it, and how much beautiful longing. And there are some songs that really, we end with King of Kings, which is joyful, but Simeon's song, and these songs of just a real longing, and letting it not be resolved right away, but just laying that down. And I think that is for me at the root of this album, and what makes it like enduring.
To
me, I'll just say a quick word too, just to me about this album. I have a great love for Advent and Christmas music, but not a great love for the more sort of commercial, very, very polished, produced kind of sound that comes with it, with so much of
bring
it.
Bring out the jingle bells.
And I think part of the reason why that's so off-putting to me is just that it just communicates sentimentality. It's sentimental. It's supposed to make me feel warm, fuzzy feelings, and when in reality, I think when it came to writing something about the coming of God as a baby, I have a longing and a yearning, to use those words, as a songwriter to try to give some glimpse of that mystery that that catches your breath, and to me, sentimental overproduction is just a complete, it just saps that instantly. There's something I love about the dry, very underproduced but tastefully done sound of this album. It wasn't just that we only had a day to record; that was an aspect. But
We
it
had
was
2 days.
2 days. Sorry.
Come on.
There you go.
14 songs, 2 days.
But it's the kind of sound I feel like we would have gone for anyway, even if we had a whole week. Because we're not. I think oftentimes the power and the mystery of a good lyric can be deflated, by overly emotional or overly produced sound. You're trying to tell someone how they're supposed to feel about it, and a lot of bad songs rely on that because they know that the lyrics can't hack it themselves. And so I think it speaks to some of the people who have influenced us musically also, that this is the way to go. It's like really lo-fi, not super emotional tone of voice, just straight out singing something, not a lot of production. I love it. I mean, that's the kind of music I like to listen to.
Yeah, and let's just talk about that sound for a second. I this is not an insult, but many songs that I hear from you guys, my brain goes to that "Oh Brother Where Art Thou" type rootsy type music that is from another age, and and it blends, but it also still has a message that can blend in with any time period. So what is that on purpose? Is that kind of rootsy, kind of Americana type sound? Is that just kind of what flows natural, or is this something that we're trying to kind of put a message across with?
Oh, good question. I think definitely at the beginning for this first album, the by necessity, but also through desire, I know that I came in wanting us in a room. I wanted this sound of people singing live in a room together. I wanted like just all the crackles and what would come, the squeaks of the chair and everything. And I think that fit on many levels theologically. It just all kind of came together, and it fit with our budget at the time. I mean, I think I literally had $800, and the studio for 2 days was 770. So okay. But
okay,
Jill, did you have something to say to that?
Just with that sound, I just know that it's some people can spend a lot of hard work trying to produce that almost vintage sound, and it just seems to be natural with you guys. And I think a lot of that may just be your natural harmonies together, and kind of your natural sound together. And I think that's something that definitely can't be reproduced, not on purpose anyway. So to hear it coming out of to hear it coming out of an album centered around Advent, I think is a special thing. And so you guys went on from Advent, and then what would Until He Comes would have been your first album a non-Advent related album.
It was in a way, it was the first Ordinary Time album, because the first one we recorded, we weren't a band. So the second one, it was pretty soon after. We recorded it probably a year after or something.
Just barely.
And in part could be just because of the momentum that people were interested. Ben was moving. This again was probably me kind of organizing it and pushing for it, because it was like, I don't know when this is going to happen again. And here we are. Ben had some other songs that he had written as part of his master's degree. We had some other hymns we had wanted to put down. I had some other songs, and so we
Yeah.
kind of pushed to do another one.
Okay.
Jill,
So yeah,
Jill can
yeah,
probably
this would
speak
have
to it.
served as and this is the one that I tend to go back to, and just because love Advent, love Christmas, but I want to get to the beginning. I don't always want to listen to Advent, but I know
Yeah.
this is just right after this.
Yeah.
But there are some songs in there. So like 2008, I'll just be honest, I was like a junior in high school.
Awesome.
So so I missed, really kind of missed a lot of this type of worship, because I was just going to church with with parents and things like that. So to be able to go back a little bit before, I really kind of started to realize, hey, this is what I like. This is kind of what I like to hear. Is nice. And I believe also Until He Comes, if anyone is subscriber or listens to the today's hymn writers playlist on Spotify that Hymnology has, there's 3 songs from this album that were added today. So
nice.
Oh wow. Awesome.
so those are on there if you want to listen to them. So then we have Until He Comes. That's your first actual album as Ordinary Time, with the exception of course, Playing Before. So let's talk. There's a lot of other things we could talk about within these albums, but let's talk about what's coming, because I think that's exciting. You guys have some exciting things coming. So what is the plan for Ordinary Time here in the next few months or so?
Yeah.
If
so
you can share.
We can, Sawyer.
Yeah.
We're working for the first time with a producer. Isaac Wardell's going to help us, hopefully, and we're going to launch a Kickstarter in the next week or so, probably. And assuming all of the funding comes through, we're going to produce an album early, like January 2023. With Isaac. So that's what we're already writing toward. And he's like, if you want a 10-song album, write 100 songs. So we're like writing more than we ever, trying to write more than we ever have, to be able to be selective and really pray about and try to discern what's helpful for God's people right now in 2022, 2023. So that's what we're working toward and trying to work hard.
Yeah. And in case anybody doesn't know, Isaac is Isaac Wardell. He's of Bifrost Arts and Porter's Gate music. So and they're doing phenomenal things always. And so this album really is kind of would be more of a response to everything that's kind of happened in the past couple of years.
Well, I'll add something. I mean, COVID, as it was for everybody, the global pandemic affected us. We didn't get together for the first time in 15 years and had to scratch plans, and that's fine. But it also gave us the opportunity to reflect, and so I kind of pushed us to consider what's our purpose. What are we doing this for? Is this is this for us to see each other? We're old friends. Is that it? That's fine if that is, or is there more? And I jump in, Ben and Jill, if you heard something different, but I think we kind of refocused on our original purpose, which was to serve the church, and we began to consider, okay, we've done a number of recordings in this one way. Can we step up? Can we challenge ourselves a bit and take this opportunity to go a bit deeper, and to work with someone to draw out the craft of songwriting and to discern what is the response, what are we hearing in our different worship communities, in our own lives, and bring out song. And Isaac, it has already been amazing to work with. He's an amazing creative, of course, but also just encouraging us to I guess the metaphor, separate the wheat from the chaff, and to not just accept everything we have, but to kind of refine and really kind of try to bring the best we can. And so this is the first time we're taking a whole year to write. We're pushing each other. We are really trying to dig deep and to see what we can offer for the people who listen to us and for those who haven't heard of us. So we're really, really excited and a little nervous.
Nervous-sided. Some of the themes that are rising to the top right now, which this is kind of a teaser, and also who knows, we're going to write hopefully a lot more.
Yeah.
But just, in this time, in this
Mhm.
day and age, one of the things that we want to offer, one thing that keeps on coming up is what is our hope, and
Okay.
where does it really lie? So,
Yeah.
and finding it more eschatologically focused, like more,
Okay.
and God will come again, and
Yeah.
Christ will come again, and all the sad things will be made untrue, like it
Yeah.
says in the Jesus Storybook Bible. And
Yeah.
um and I don't know, like sometimes, like at the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know how that was going to shake out. Like we
No.
we
Yeah.
don't know the end of whatever hard situation we're in right now, and it might just stay hard.
Right.
It doesn't always resolve
Yeah.
in a time frame where we can even see.
Mhm.
So anchoring our hope in the resolution that we believe will come.
Yeah.
So
In a
that's
time of fear,
one
I
thing
think
that's
that's one
coming
of
up.
the
Yeah,
things that come up is
not
just
being afraid.
to not be afraid is
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, and I think it's good that, I mean, it seems, I think so many people tried to write just straight out of it, like, hey, we went through this, and let me write as quickly as I can and put something out. But I think it's good to breathe on it for just a little bit, to kind of figure out what exactly it is. And like you said, Isaac's real big on writing, and write in excess and then trim the fat, and you can really kind of see what you can get out of that. So you guys said you'll have a Kickstarter coming pretty soon for it.
Yeah.
Okay. What about when do you guys think that'll be?
A
Mm.
weekish.
Is it a week from today?
Thinking about a week from
Okay.
today. Hoping we're
Okay. So real quick,
getting the
if we
ducks in the
say a
row.
week from today, everybody listening,
Yeah.
that means today.
Okay. Today it's
or at least
launching.
close to it. That means it would have been out a few days now.
Amazing.
So this episode will be on a week from this upcoming Friday. So the
Okay.
Friday after Mother's Day, you're listening to this now, is when it came out. So the previous Tuesday-ish is when that Kickstarter would have began.
Google
All right.
Ordinary Time
So
Kickstarter.
that's right. So go ahead and find it. And also at this point, as soon as you guys get that going, if you'll make sure that if you guys just email me that, we'll go ahead and get that out there so everybody can go ahead and start supporting this project that's coming up here soon. And we're looking forward to it. Anything else you guys have coming up? Is there any plans of shows or concerts or anything anytime soon, or what you got coming?
The main thing we're really pushing towards is this album, honestly, and I think we'll perform music from this album after it's made. But I think we've intentionally tried not to. We can get together so seldom, just because of our lives and living far apart and all that. So I think our real priority is to really focus on the writing and get this album done, and then and then do some performing after that, I think.
Yeah.
Is that true, guys? I mean, I don't know. I'm just
I think so. I mean, one of the tensions we've always had as a band is all of us are very committed to our local setting. We've all done worship leading at various times and are part of our local community, and that makes it being committed to that makes it hard to get together, and just the logistics of having families. And so part of the cost of deciding to record in this way is we're prioritizing the writing and the waiting to get together in January. So our immediate future, I think, is long distance, and we in the old kind of words, we covet your prayers for that. And if anyone's listening, like we really long to serve the church and its people, and this music, for me, I think for all of us, has helped to reorient us to God time and again. And one of the, going back to like why ordinary time, well, ordinary time in the church calendar, at least as I experience it, is this great reminder to reorient. What are we oriented to? What is our hope in? What is it? And those rhythms, and coming back time and again, reconverting.
Anchor.
And so we hope that this is part of that, and that whatever we produce can serve to be useful in that way to people listening. And
Mm-hmm.
we really delight in that. It's been such a joy to get to play this music, to put some of the scriptures to music, to perform for people, and to meet people, mostly in North America who have journeyed with us and embraced our music, and it's just been delightful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm excited to see what you guys have in the future, and I know everyone else is too. And if you are new to Ordinary Time Music, I definitely suggest you guys go and look at their catalog. Go back and listen to that Advent album, even though it's not Christmas time, and go on from there. I promise you'll be blessed by it. And be on the lookout, like I said, for that Kickstarter, which should be out by now. If not, it will be soon, and I'll make sure that we get that out for you guys if you want to support them in their ministry. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for being on Hymnology today.
Thank you, Sawyer.
Thank you.
It has been great
your
talking to you
ministry
guys
as well.
And thank you all for joining and listening. And I hope you'll join me next week on